If you're an expert at one thing, then you're probably not all that good at anything else. So what's your preference there? And I think we all have our own ideas about that. Today I'm sharing you mine and how it all came about. And when this all started out, I had no idea on why and how and what it was all good for. You get born, you get indoctrinated with certain stuff, and then for a while, I mean, I wasn't a rebellious kid or anything. I followed pretty much everything that I was told for quite a long time, until eventually I just had enough and I decided to do my own thing. That included moving from Germany to Canada. It's a new country, new opportunities, new adventure. The adventure, believe it or not, never stopped. Even at the age of 62, I haven't got it all figured out. So if that sounds like you, or if that sounds like something you'd like to understand better, well, stay with me. Tell you the truth, there's so many things I'm interested in that I haven't even touched yet. And there are only so many years in life, and thankfully we don't get to know the exact number. My name is George Schlackheg, and welcome to my newest video. So today I'm going for a walk in the west end of Edmonton. I'm in a neighborhood where half the people who live here and most of the people in Canada couldn't afford those houses here. It's a prime location and they're all mansions. But this is how I get access to the Fort Edmonton footbridge, which is just around the corner here. And that leads me down to the river valley where I like to go for walks. Normally I like to come here by bicycle, and I usually come from the other side. Well, today I have some extra time, so I'm out for a walk. It's different, but I like doing this. I really enjoy walks. One thing I'm kind of wondering about here, I'm walking on the street. There's a sidewalk only on one side of the road. Is that really how it has to be? Of course, like always, I have some thoughts while I'm walking, and today it's going to be about specialization, guys. What do you gain by specializing in a certain profession? Becoming really, really good at something and then focusing on that all your life? Well, this question came up at numerous times throughout my life. It really started with coming out of high school, when you were expected to make a decision either what to study. I grew up in Germany, so I could have went to a university for relatively cheap or maybe nothing. So this was quite tempting for me, but there was just nothing that I could decide on that I really wanted to do badly enough. Now, the one thing that I was interested in at the time, and as you probably noticed if you've been following my channel, I'm still interested in it even now. Yes, I am. It's auto mechanics. So back then, I applied to all the car dealerships in my area for an apprenticeship position. And unfortunately, I had broken my femur a few months earlier. Of course, this required surgery, and during the surgery, unfortunately, my femur became infected. So the infection wasn't just in the soft tissue like the muscles and what have you, but inside the bone. That's called osteomyelitis. So I had severe problems with that because I was basically handicapped. I couldn't get the apprenticeship that I wanted. So my dad, with his connections, got me one as an electromechanic, also known as industrial electrician. You know, I passed the apprenticeship for that. Now I was an industrial electrician. And guess what? About a year or so after I passed that, I ended up in Canada. And in Canada, your German license doesn't count as anything, but it still gives you enough experience to land a job. And that's what happened. My first job in Canada was with Siemens, a German company. By the way, I'm on the approach to the Fort Edmonton footbridge, and this hill right here, it's a really tough one when you're on your bike, especially if you have any load on your bike. Well, so as an industrial electrician, I could have been set for life. I could have stayed in this field, specialized in it really well, specialized in whatever I was doing at Siemens, and later on I went for other companies and stuff, but all the work is kind of related. Skills are transferable. You have your troubleshooting skills, which are highly regarded, and it's all good. But for the most part, I thought of my work always as super boring. I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to stay that. And you know, the dream of being an auto mechanic had never left my head yet. Why not specialize in that stuff that you really like? I really liked the classic North American cars. And there were still lots of them around at the time. So I wanted to get into that field really bad, which caused me to sign up for mechanic school in Montreal. A year and a half later, I had some sort of certification, but it basically only prepared me for an apprenticeship. So again, I had to call around the dealerships. So this famous Fort Edmonton footbridge is now right behind me there, and I'm not going to cross it yet because I really like the trail that's ahead of us now, and that's where I'm going to go down. See how well traveled this is? Yeah, people come down here with their bikes. Okay, here's a really good view of the bridge. And believe it or not, I like to fly my drone right under there. It's a weekday. It's amazing how quiet it is here. There's just nobody walking this way, or very few people. Some cyclists I've seen, that's about it. Get back to my story here. So I was going to become an auto mechanic yet again. Never happened. I tell you what happened instead. Well, first I contacted several dealerships, and this time my handicap wasn't physical. I was fully recovered from my problems, but looking for a job in a dealership where most of the people that worked there and the people that had the management positions were Francophone. And I was an immigrant coming from Germany, speaking mostly English and German. French was shaky, but I was learning it fast. Yeah, no, I didn't get a job in a dealership right away. And I probably could have got a job in a dealership had I been a bit more patient about it. But there are different kinds of mechanics that have different pay scales. And auto mechanic ones tend to be lower on the scale than, say, industrial mechanics. So I ended up with a company that was servicing forklift trucks, selling and servicing a forklift dealership. I only stayed there for a few months because I got laid off after that, because apparently the economy wasn't doing as good as they had expected and whatever. But now I had this forklift experience. And so I ended up working for Zellers, a major Canadian retailer at that time, for 6 years in a warehouse servicing and repairing forklift trucks. Well, this was a well-paying, a good job. Once again, I thought of my work as pretty boring because I was servicing the same machines over and over again and again. And sometimes when I was expected to do a maintenance service, you know, I was actually prone to forgetting to check things because they were so fresh on my mind from a month earlier that I just thought, well, I already checked this. Same machine, you know, like it wasn't conscious, but it happened probably more than I'd like to admit. See, where I'm walking right now, when the river is high, this would actually be full of water here. This is an island here, as you can see, where all the grass and there's actually bushes and trees. Well, that's never underwater. But this lower part here, we're walking literally in the river right now. Gonna go up on that island part. Oh, it's so steep. Am I gonna make it? Yes, of course. You know, I don't think I've seen the river this low too often, but it's a trend lately. You know, we've had years of drought, I think, and more often than not the river is fairly low, but normally there's still more water here. So if you're still with me, then it might be because you're actually wondering, being a forklift mechanic, what I ended up doing. Well, my love for auto mechanics wasn't done at that time. Everybody needs a car. When I first moved to Canada, I had no tools, well, maybe a few tools that I brought from Germany, but they were all metric. You know, I had very little in terms of standard, and all these old cars that I liked, well, there wasn't a metric bolt on any of those. So I started out, I had my uncle's car, like he passed it down to me, which was a 1970 Chevelle with a straight 6-cylinder in it. And I loved that car. I really, really liked it. Drove it for a number of years. In my head, I wanted to restore it, but it never happened. Eventually, this thing got sold to a neighbor, and it wasn't even roadworthy anymore at that time. It was just parked in the driveway. So you can see I've been there before, done that. At that same time, I had a 1940 Buick Roadmaster with a straight 8-cylinder engine. I've never seen that one run. Then I also had my 1976 Dodge pickup that I bought with an engine that was knocking like crazy. And I have to admit that at the time, this pickup, having bought it even before I went through that mechanics school, I didn't know that when you listen to an engine, say you go buy a truck, and that's important, guys. At the time, I was naive enough to think that if you start up the engine and it sounds good, hey, that's pretty cool. You know, what else could possibly go wrong? Well, yeah, the engine was knocking like crazy as soon as it warmed up. And there was a whole bunch of other stuff wrong with it. At the time, the truck was only about 12 years old. But it's a piece of, you know what? Guess what? I didn't give up on that truck. Eventually, I ended up putting something like 120,000 miles on that. And it was one of the best vehicles I ever had. But boy, did I have to work for that. And that kind of set me up on this path of, you know, always getting the cars that are in need of something. And that's how you get a cheap car. That's been the pattern. At the time, I built my own garage, started fixing cars, still worked as a forklift mechanic, different jobs later on. But I was at heart, I was a car mechanic. That was until about 2001, I think, or late 2000, something like that. I decided I didn't want to be a forklift mechanic anymore. What had happened is that I was working with forklift service companies. The time I was enjoying this the most, and get that, like I'm totally different today, was when I had to travel in a service van to see customers and to go there and fix their forklifts. you can't charge people much for travel time, so this was always a problem. But yeah, then I had another childhood dream that I went after. My specialization in mechanical work was only remotely related to what I was going to do. I went for my trucking license. And actually the idea of traveling across a continent, North America, in a huge rig and getting paid for it, that idea I fell in love with probably as soon as I saw these movies that they had back in the late 70s, like Smokey and the Bandit, Convoy, this kind of stuff. I was going to turn that dream into reality, and boy, did I ever. For 9 years, I was living on the road. I had free travel for 9 years all over the continental United States, 10 provinces of Canada, and while you really only get to see the highway, the truck stop, and the industrial park with this line of work, I could proudly say that I've been to 48 states and 10 provinces, which very few people can. And I always made it a point that if I had some time to spend in between, I would go explore something. I would go check something out. And well, on occasion, it was just a local bar. At least you get to meet some people. You get an idea of what kind of vibe there is in whatever state. After 9 years of trucking, though, I was done with that because yeah, I was specialized in trucking. I was good at it. But to tell you the truth, working conditions in trucking are no joke. At least they weren't back then. Yeah, and then what happened is, well, my life completely changed in, what year was this? In 2009. My ex and I got divorced through the sale of my truck and some other savings. I had a little bit of money available to last me for a few months. So what happened is I took an old bicycle. I went across the United States and Mexico, and I ended up in Cancun. That bike ride is well documented, even though at the time I didn't have video. I just took a lot of pictures. There's a series on this channel, a playlist. I think it's called Destinations Are Fake. That's also the name of the book that I wrote about it. And yeah, it changed my life. First of all, I always liked cycling. But when I first moved to Canada, I didn't have time for it anymore. Working, having kids, having a house, having to take care of family issues. And eventually, well, the bicycle just collected dust, and then one day I had a tire issue, so the bike just disappeared in the shed for 5, maybe even 8 years. And it was in 2009 that I finally discovered bicycle touring for myself. That is still my dream because it is travel, just like the trucking. It is travel. You can go really far on a bicycle. And I mean really far. You just have to take your time. And the benefit of that is that you see everything. You experience different areas. You get an idea of what makes people tick. Well, I just love it. I just love the idea of total freedom. And because you're always outside, well, you get to respect the elements a whole lot more. I mean, I remember spending a day or so under a roof in Louisiana where in 2005 the building had blown away and all that was left was that roof. And it was a big rainstorm, so I was just hanging out there. I actually had food and a little homemade alcohol stove and was able to cook there, which was just amazing, you know. Even though when I tell you this, it seems like, what's the big deal, you know? You're just stuck. Just being in a place you've never been, by yourself, figuring it out, how to get by. And that, guys, brings me back to the subject of specialization. The story would get way too long for this video, but you probably know, or you may know, that today I earn my living as a professional handyman. Again, there's mechanical skills involved, but for the most part, you're a renovator. It's different. And again, I switched careers. I switched it up. So I have never been really specialized on one single thing for too long. But often I've been specialized for long enough to get good at certain things. Yeah, so they say that learning a new skill takes X amount of hours. 10,000? Is that true? So by doing any particular thing for 10,000 hours, or maybe even just 5,000, I never counted. But at a certain point, you don't really develop any further, or you don't get any better at whatever you were doing if you're switching to something else. But as far as life experience goes, and you're going to discover abilities maybe that you didn't expect, because now you can transfer some of your experience that you've had in one field and apply it in another. For example, as a truck driver, I sometimes had to pull over at the side of the road and deal with the mechanical problem that would have otherwise required a tow truck, a shop, lots of money. Well, that's just the most simple example, but in many cases, I found my way around it. The key to being less specialized is basically to keep your curiosity, keep your eyes open, and then if there's something that tickles your fancy or you really want to go deeper into it, you find a way to do it. If you feel you are in a field that maybe it's not your dream job or whatever, it's never too late to change it. Hey there, you want to smile for the camera? Being specialized in one field of work and becoming really, really good at it, being the go-to guy and staying there long after you think you learned everything, it'll get you a reputation. It'll get you far. I mean, you probably get to pick your job. You could choose among all the best companies and you will be in high demand. There's no doubt about it. If you change or you develop a reputation for just jumping into something else in a way that can harm you, but in many other ways, there are benefits that you'll discover over time. One of those benefits is like eventually you'll have a whole bunch of experience in different fields. Today, the age we're living in today has plenty of opportunities for you to share this. So YouTube is the ideal way of sharing your experience. YouTube is something I have discovered way after it became a thing, and now I've been on it for a while and it's become a passion. So where's this gonna go? I don't know. But for now, I'm trying to become a YouTube expert, trying to become an expert at making better and better videos and talking to the camera like a pro with all this confidence. But the point of this video is not to promote myself or anything. It's just a suggestion that you never have to be stuck in anything. And whatever interests you, there's always another opportunity to pick that up and make something out of it and get good at something that you never thought of being good at, or perhaps you did, but you didn't get the chance. Don't take specialization too seriously, even if you're an accountant or a lawyer. I mean, lawyers go into politics. Specialization, in my opinion, is way overrated. And that'll be it for this video. And I hope you enjoyed listening to me for so long. I know I enjoyed talking, like usual. Of course, share this video. And I'll see you very, very soon.